For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020.
Hi, welcome to Life with Lisa Bradshaw. I am excited to have my guest on today. I've known him a long time, and you know him as well. He is Mike Magnotti, host of
Mad Dog Magnotti.
Mike Mad Dog Magnotti.
We've got to keep the brand going here.
And you even brought your mug here.
Yeah, right.
So you host a show on this channel as well,
Yeah.
Street Talk and other stuff.
Yep.
But you also have another gig, which is a counselor. So what is it, your title exactly?
I'm a mental health therapist, counselor, however you want to put it.
So I wanted to have you on today because I brought you in as the expert regarding.
Oh, really? Wow, cool.
I brought you in as the expert. I wanted to talk about kind of the winter gloom, depression side of things, but also different types of depression, and give advice for how to get through that.
Sure,
and then later in the
that.
show, we'll have another guest on who's kind of found ways to combat that winter gloom. So we'll start with just our conversation.
Well, depression, it's a serious thing, and it can have a lot of causes, like you said. We talked earlier off camera, situational depression. Someone who normally isn't prone to depression, but have an event occur in their life that is disappointing. There is, genetic depression. Often when people come to me about depression, one of the first questions I ask is depression something that is current in your family? And it often is. And I remind them, well, some people have physical issues, some people have mental health issues or chemical issues that there's no shame in it. It's just something that could be passed on. There's something called, oh, doggone it. It's seasonal affective disorder.
Okay. So that's like what we're in here then, perhaps.
But actually, it can also...
when it's sunny and bright, it can still be?
Sometimes springtime, people get springtime, laziness, the spring fever
Feel like they're
type of
supposed
thing.
to get moving and they're not?
Right. Summer can also bring that on. Some people do get just affected by the heat, as some of the rest of us do by the cold. So, there's lots of reasons for it. There are many things people can do about it.
Right.
And that's probably what you want to talk about a little bit today.
Well, the thing that I was first wanted to bring up, and I'm okay with talking about things in my life. This is called Life with Lisa Bradshaw.
Sure.
It's not about my life, but some things apply. And I think if there's something I'm going through or my friends are going through, then chances are someone watching has as well. So you talked about situational depression, and what I found about I think the two times I can really recognize that I've been depressed in my life, one was when my husband passed away, and two was when my son left for college. Now, the second event should have been like celebration and happy, and I did my job, and there he goes, and off in the world. But boy, it was very difficult to adjust. And the difference was the first time I was depressed, I had Hunter to I still had to get up every day and get with my routine. But the reason I bring that up is I think that sometimes we don't realize we were in a depression until we're coming out of it.
That's very true.
And so then it makes it hard, because if you aren't really aware of, that's why I wanted to talk with you today, for someone watching who may not be aware that they're depressed and need help, when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to really know what to do.
Well, see, you meant one of the concerns is that you said it yourself. Hunter leaving off to college. He's a fine young man. You got him to this point. He's doing well. It should be a period of excitement and celebration. Well, that was your expectation. Okay, but there was a significant change in the relationship, and anytime that occurs, there's grief involved. See, people don't realize that.
I think that's true if you change jobs, if you lose a partner in marriage. It can be like any big change, no matter how.
Any change in relationship is going to bring some degree of grief, depending on the intensity of that relationship. And of course, with you and Hunter, it was...
My hair was falling out, and I wasn't exercising, and my blood pressure was out of whack. It takes on these physical manifestations, and that's why it can be a health concern as well.
It can very much,
mental health, right? That's why you pair those two. So when, in your practice, you take in people who, you counsel with people who, are there because they want help. And so what are some of the things that you do to try and help someone along who recognizes depression or that you diagnose with depression?
Well, the first thing I asked them about medication. Now, medication is not a cure-all, but for some people it is very helpful. But expectations about medication have to be proper. I once had a young man plop himself down in my office and say, I've been taking this antidepressant for 6 months, and I still don't feel like doing my homework. I said, dude, there's no drug that's...
It just takes the edge off, right? Well, it's not like it doesn't fix everything.
No,
you still have to do the work.
You have to have your expectations proper, and you also have to realize that all of us have fluctuating emotions. Okay, so for some people, medication is a possibility, and we talk about that, but there's other things people can do. And of course, the interesting challenge is that many of the things you could be doing to relieve your depression are things the depression causes you not want to do.
Right, like get out of bed and take a shower.
Right, or get outside a little bit. So this is where cognitive behavioral therapy comes in. That's a fancy way to say change the way you're thinking. See, because what I point out to these folks is that 65 to 75% of what you're feeling in here, this is true for you and I as well, comes from what we're thinking. And people don't like to hear this, and I'm going to make some people angry when I say this, but depression is also accompanied by a lot of morbid self-absorption. And people need to pay attention to that, stop embracing it, and begin to change how they think. Now, there's also practical things you can do to do that. For example, I always suggest that people consider volunteering. You know why?
Because it takes the focus off yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't be depressed when you're helping somebody else.
Right.
But simple things like taking a walk, getting more light, sometimes vitamins. There was one person I dealt with significant depression to the point of some severe suicidal ideation. Part of his issue was that he needed to get back on the right kind of diet. A guy like me, I could eat anything, but there are some people that
you're still going to be happy.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Sometimes I wish I had food restrictions, but for other people, diet is very important for how they are going to react emotionally.
Well, and I think too, depending on what the circumstances are, I mean, some people gain weight when they're depressed, some people lose weight when they're depressed.
Exactly.
First time I was depressed, I didn't eat for literally almost a month. This time, I ate plenty and gained 15 pounds and lost some hair and didn't exercise.
Was it predominantly carbohydrates you were eating?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean,
that's often one of the symptoms is that you crave carbohydrates and you load up on them when you're depressed for one reason or another. It's probably because of the sugar involved.
Right.
But
well, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Mike. He's our guest today, Mike Magnotti. You know him from Street Talk and other stuff on this channel, but he's also here today to give us advice for beating depression, but also recognizing it and taking those first steps. So we'll talk more with him when we come back, and later in the show we'll have a woman named Tresa who ordered a light to lighten up her life through these dark winter months. We'll come back in just a moment.
Please join us weekly for the 12th District with yours truly, Kerry Condata. Check your channel guide for times or go to ncwlife.com for details.
Hi, we're back. We're chatting with Mike Mad Dog Magnotti. I got it right this time. You know him from his show, Street Talk and Other Stuff. I know him as a mental health counselor and a friend, and we've been colleagues for a long time too. But so I wanted to have you here today talking a bit about winter gloom, but also situational depression and just the tips for, or the ideas about recognizing depression and how to get started and getting help. So we talked about some of that at the beginning of the show, and now let's talk more about how it affects the people who are living with the person who's depressed.
See, I mean, that's often a real difficult thing. You have somebody in your house who's depressed, you may not recognize it, but what's interesting is that often with men, and particularly adolescent boys, how depression is expressed is through aggression.
For the person who is depressed.
Don't know that. The person who is depressed, right, okay. Doing marriage counseling or dealing with parents who want their teenage boys and that kind of thing. Well, he's always angry, he's always this and that. Well, often it's because they're depressed for one reason or another, and people don't see that. What they see is the outward acting out behavior, so they get a little confused. But it can be an interesting thing to deal with, particularly to get people to recognize, the people who are going through that. You've got a young man, 15, 16 years old, and he doesn't understand that he's depressed. Okay, he doesn't understand why he's acting so aggressively all the time. So,
and it's the same thing as when we don't recognize depression in other forms.
Right, exactly.
But it just shows up differently. So I'm okay with saying I saw you as my counselor for a couple of years, a few years ago, and nice that I haven't had to see you in that capacity for a long time.
Yeah,
but
I cured her. Okay.
Well,
she's fine now.
I do want to say though that I have referred several people to you, and there's one person in particular, which we won't name, but that person felt like you gave them tools, you gave that person homework and assignments, and that person did the work and literally said, he healed me. That what you just said, you're joking, but it's true. Well, and, it was like a 3-month endeavor.
Yeah. You don't know how much that means to me, because that's the whole reason why I do the job. I mean, I don't have to work.
Right.
But,
Well, and so let's talk about that. So someone comes in to see you, they're willing to do the work, you give assignments. I know you told me to read books, you told me to take notes and different things, and I did those things as well. Mine was a little different because it wasn't just about me, but that person who I'm mentioning, really did the work too. Yeah. What about the people that keep coming week after week and aren't doing the work?
Well, I do a lot of people who are mandated by the court to come, and also I have a contract with Children's Services with the state. Now, what I say to these folks is this: I say, I want to go home and tell my wife, hey, I'm a stud, I helped this guy, change this guy's life, change this person's life, help them get their children back, help them deal with their substance abuses and that kind of thing. I mean, that's important to me.
Right.
But in all honesty, if you don't change, that doesn't negatively affect my life at all. I say, look, I go back to my life, you go back to yours.
You still get paid.
Yeah.
You still show up at that time.
Yeah.
For an hour.
And when you leave here, I mean, if you're fine with how you are, I mean, I'll salute.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you're not,
here's what you can do to change it.
I don't have a magic wand.
Right.
I see you for an hour a week. It's what you do when you're not here that's what's important.
So do you think that people who are experiencing depression, do you think the first step is getting help with counseling? Because if you start to feel like, if you're watching the show and you think, I have been depressed. I haven't been, getting up, getting motivated, getting my day started.
Or I no longer find pleasure in things I previously found pleasure
and even things like you have to do. When I was feeling that depression in the fall, I did what I had to do for work. But I have an interesting career in that there's way too much flexibility, and there can be problems in that. That's a whole other show. But when you first start to think, I can't do this myself, is it counseling first? Is it your physician, your doctor? What is it?
You should go talk to somebody, okay? And what I always recommend is that people do get a checkup, okay? That do go talk to their doctor.
Because it could be a blood hormone imbalance,
very much so.
Things like that.
Right. And then I also ask what's going on in your life. Is this something that's been chronic, or chronic? Has it been going on for a long time, or is it acute? Like your depression due to Hunter leaving was an acute situation. It was temporary. Okay. What's the situation? And then what exactly are they prepared or willing to do about it? Some people will consider medication, and for some people, medication is a very good answer. Other people, there's other things that need to fit their lifestyle. But when people's depression is severe, and that they are on medication, they should also engage in talk therapy, because they may start to slip and not recognize it, or not be willing to do something about it.
So you're an extra set of eyes and ears.
Right. So the therapist can say, hey, look, you were this way 2 weeks ago, now you're like this. Are you still on your meds? And because that's an issue, because many people begin to feel better.
And they stop taking them.
They stop taking their meds. Or for whatever reason. But if your depression is one of those that's severe, or something that's genetic, and it's going to be lifelong, if you're on medication, you should continue to talk with somebody on a fairly regular basis, so that they can help you see if you're starting to slip, or other symptoms are coming up that you're not recognizing.
And you could even be sharing a life, sharing a home, sharing a workplace, sharing a child, sharing a marriage, whatever, with someone who you recognize is depressed. And what would be your advice for getting that person to help the person they love recognize that they might need help?
Well,
that's a touchy thing, right? If they're not ready to admit that.
Okay, well,
just like anything.
I'm gonna get religious here, okay? The Bible says
we got 2 minutes to get religious.
The Bible says speak the truth in love. Sometimes you have to tell people things that are hard for them to hear, but you're doing it because you love them, okay? You know, it's like my wife. She loves me very much.
She tells you everything you need to know.
Everything. But sometimes, I mean, people need to, in the right setting. I mean, you don't just slam somebody with that, but when someone's willing to listen, when they're open, not in the midst of an argument, you say, look, I have noticed this, I've noticed that. I really think that we need to go talk with somebody, okay? You need to reach out and get a little bit of help because, I love you and I'm concerned about you, and, you probably recognize you've had some of these things as well. It is a touchy thing, but people need to, put their big boy, big girl pants on and, confront the person honestly and with love and affection. But it's hard to do sometimes, but it's necessary.
Well, I'm going to give you an extra couple minutes because you're such a fascinating interview. But I wanted to, let's talk about then, show the bright side of things. So the people who've come and done the work and get the help.
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
I'm not too sure what you mean. Okay.
Well, so that you've seen someone for a while who's following those steps, and what changes do you see in them when they come in and in their life, and what can a person expect from getting help?
What's going on in your life? Okay, are you eating? Okay, are you still? I mean, some people turn to self-medication. Sometimes substance abuse or drinking too much. How is that going? Are you doing things that you enjoy? Are you getting? How is it trying to get out of bed in the morning?
So let's say they've done that, and then what do you see in that person when they start to turn the bend? I mean, to give people hope who are saying, I can't see myself getting through this. What does it look like when you've managed to help someone?
A lot of it is just evident by their attitude and their personality changes. Okay, they're happier. They're oftentimes people are late or too early, and that's a little bit, for appointments. That's a little bit difficult to judge sometimes. But if they start showing up on time, you can tell by their personality and how they're interacting with you when they're in your office. Again, there's the practical stuff. Are you eating better? Are you sleeping better? Is it still a problem getting up in the morning? Are you enjoying golfing again? Okay. Those are the kind of things I look for.
And I'd imagine that if you're productive in those areas of your life, then you start to be more productive perhaps at work, or you're not feeling so overwhelmed by the things you put off. Because that's the thing, is when you're not motivated to do your work, whatever your work is, if your work is raising kids, if your work is working in an office or whatever it is that you do, even the work of taking care of yourself physically, when you check out of doing that, it's so much harder to get back to it.
And
it mounts.
That can be the case, but actually some people are able to function well in one area of their life, and then they resort back to wallowing in that, self-absorption in others. And often what they tell them is, I said, you're successful here. In your job, you're successful. You do very well here. Those traits that bring that about need to be translated to the other areas of your life as well. And it takes a little effort, takes a little discipline. And one thing I tell to most of my clients is you need to pay attention to the thoughts up here. When you feel your emotions shift from positive to negative, again, like I said, 65% of what we're feeling, 65 to 75% is based on what we're thinking. When you feel that emotional shift, pay attention to the thought that brought that on, and then challenge that. Okay, does that make sense?
It does, because I'll say that when I expected that it would be very hard when he left for school. So I checked myself even throughout that time thinking, am I just doing this because that's my role? Of course I'm supposed to be broken because my kid left home because we're so tight and all these things and what we've been through together. But then when he was home for winter break and he left, and I thought, here, is it going to start all over again? But it didn't, because I was through the thick of it, and I knew that he was happy and he was doing well, and he had adjusted, and I was able to finally sit back and go, this is the fruit of my labor, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And enjoy it.
You had reorganized those thought processes.
Yes, but I agree with what you're saying about that thought process, because I could have really wallowed in that for a long time. Anyone can, whatever that case is.
This happens. Sometimes I'll remember something stupid I did back in elementary school, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what an idiot you are.
Got to call that friend and apologize or something, whatever.
Stop. Why are you? Why are you? That happened 40 years ago. You're not that person anymore. You're judging yourself then by who you are now.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just, you'd have to, again, this is what the cognitive restructuring, changing the way you're thinking is. So that, you know, you discipline it so that when you have that emotional shift, you pay attention to the thought that brought it on, and you challenge those thoughts in an appropriate, non-judgmental way. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it most definitely does. I appreciate you coming on. I really
anytime.
have a lot of respect for the work you do.
Oh, thank
the people
you.
you help and the way you go about it.
Feelings mutual.
You're a straight shooter, and that's what people need. I didn't want to go see anyone who was going to justify my behavior and make me feel good about myself about it. I wanted somebody who was going to be hard on me.
No.
So, but you're I wouldn't say hard. I'd say you're very real, and you get to the bottom of things. You don't waste time.
And I think people can tell I really do care about
Yes,
them. So
for sure.
I hope so anyway.
So that goes a long way. So anyway, so you know Mike Magnotti, your show is on when?
Mondays at 10 o'clock, it's live, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 o'clock, and Wednesdays at 5:30. But it can also be, you can go directly to the North NCW Life website, go to Watch Now, go to the archive shows, and
Watch
they're
your show.
archived there as well.
Yeah, so I'm glad to have you on. Thanks
It's my pleasure.
for your advice and help. So if you're watching and any of these things strike a chord for you, then of course reach out to someone for help for yourself, because you can get through it.
Yes, you
There
can.
is help.
Yep.
When we come back, we're going to have a guest, Tresa, and she is going to share her remedy this winter for overcoming winter gloom. We'll be back in just a moment.
Have a fun video you'd like to see featured on NCW Life? Email us at newsphotos@ncwlife.com.
Hi, we're back. We're talking with Tresa Robinson about her remedies this winter for kind of overcoming that dark gloom. Thanks for being here. Seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here.
Thanks.
I saw on your Facebook about 5 or 6 weeks ago that you got this light, a happy light you call it, that can help you combat some of that, gloomy, dark winter months.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
A couple weeks into using it, I thought, this isn't really working. And my friend Kelly posted that it took her about 30 days and she started noticing it.
So how often do you use it? How does it work?
Well, I use it every morning when I'm sitting there playing on my computer doing things, and I have it about right there. And it's supposed to see your eyes. It sees your eyes, but you don't look into it. Yeah. But so I'll use it for about 30 minutes a day, and then I go on my treadmill and get ready for work, and that's my day. And I have noticed that it's helping me to get sleepy at a normal time. So that's helpful. I know.
That's a good thing
too.
Well, so then when you've used this now for about 5 or 6 weeks, you've noticed a difference. And what do you think, when you start your day now, you feel like, can you directly attribute it to this, the difference? Because you did say off camera that you go to counseling and you're doing all the work that Mike talked about that you got to do in your life. So this light wouldn't fix everything.
No.
But you do notice a difference in your everyday life with it.
For the seasonal affective disorder, where you're feeling like everything is dark, the day is just so short as far as light. And I like to have a lot of light. I need it. That's when I do my best housework, is in the daytime. I don't really enjoy doing it when it's dark out.
So you feel like it puts a kick in your step a bit.
Yeah, it kind of does. It kind of does.
So then you used it for about 5 or 6 weeks. How long do you think you'll keep using it? Do you just wait till the sun comes out again?
I don't know. I'd have to research that. I do know that when I was reading the reviews on the different lights, that you want to look for 10,000 lumens, and this one has a de-ionizer, but the reviewers were saying that that's not safe.
That might be questionable.
Yeah,
so you don't use that. You can turn that
part.
feature off.
Yes.
Okay. And it doesn't give you a tan or anything. It's not like one of those tanning lamps that people use back in the day.
It doesn't give me a tan.
So it's just about the light.
Yeah.
And then that's for 30 minutes a day in the morning, and it still makes you feel sleepy at night?
Yeah.
When you've used it in the morning?
Yeah, I'm not going to use it at night.
Because then it'll give you...
Because then it messes up your sleep pattern. Yeah.
Right. Well, good.
So,
that's cool. We're just looking for remedies to help push people through, especially if it's what we're calling through the winter, the seasonal
affective disorder.
So this can help that.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in taking a look at the light, just, I guess, go online and for Happy Light.
Happy Light. I just did a search for Happy Light.
Good. Thanks for being here,
Thanks,
sharing
Lisa.
that. We'll be back next week. I hope this show has helped you to tune into the things that you might need help with. Thanks for joining us.
Stay up to date with what's happening in North Central Washington. Go to the NCW Life Community Calendar at ncwlife.com.